Does. You know,
Interesting
I
tolerance
have
of
an
this.
unquenchable thirst for validation, arm out my self-worth to external approval in this way that I honestly, I know shrinks will tell you steer away from that, but it's pretty damn
It's pretty
gratifying. I would never think when I meet people and I'm away from cameras and lights to ever put on a show, or
mm,
even if I'm feeling crazy on the inside, I will be
yeah.
quiet and
Mm.
reserved and kind of, straight.
Blake, I'll start with you. How emotional did this
The
role
RSA
make
dog
you?
make me.
What's that?
How emotional does seeing the RCA dog this morning make me? I mean, honestly, all I eat, sleep, and breathe is this movie. I am so proud of this movie, and that's all I've eaten, slept, and breathed. that's a hard thing to past tense it. For like the past year and a half. Like, that's a great example. Watching Deadpool and Wolverine in an audience of people,
Oh my
if you're
God.
watching that at home, like, it's just, there's the human experience, like people watching and feeling together. Or a big budget movie that's fun and silly and profoundly emotional and impactful, like Deadpool, Wolverine in theaters now.
Yes.
I'm working double time, you guys.
Yeah,
I
I
am
mean-
double duty.
When Judge Lewis Lehman stated in federal court yesterday that the case between Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively was essentially a battle between feuding PR teams, it became clear that this was not just a legal dispute, it was a war of narratives. Two PR firms, one representing Blake Lively and the other representing Justin Baldoni, have been locked in a struggle for public influence. Allegations have been thrown from both sides, each accusing the other of orchestrating a smear campaign. Meanwhile, the public, people like you and me, are left trying to make sense of the situation. Today, however, I feel like I've gained a clearer understanding of what might have transpired. A new court filing from Brian Friedman and his legal team, responding to a motion concerning Leslie Sloan and Vision PR, sheds fresh light on the case. For a while now, many have questioned the true motivation behind this lawsuit. Why did she choose to file it in December, long after the controversy had begun to fade? Most of the backlash she faced was already dying down, and she could have simply moved on. Instead, she made the calculated decision to reignite the flames, turning a dwindling fire into a full-blown bonfire. Now that fire is raging out of control. What she initially believed would allow her to reclaim the narrative by positioning herself as the victim has spectacularly backfired. The steady stream of evidence that has emerged since then contradicts many of her claims. This evidence includes videos, emails, and text messages that directly challenge her statements. It's incredibly difficult to dispute video footage, written communications, or text exchanges, especially when they tell a story vastly different from the one she's presenting. Furthermore, eyewitness accounts from individuals who were present at key moments have surfaced, refuting the incidents she alleges took place. With all this unfolding, we've spent a significant amount of time analyzing and breaking down these developments to understand the deeper motivations behind the lawsuit. In a recent filing, Wayfair asserts its version of events by claiming complete creative control over the film and its marketing. According to Wayfair, Lively had only herself, her publicist Leslie Sloan, and Sloan's firm Vision PR Inc. to blame when her disastrously misguided marketing efforts for the film ruined her public reputation. In a desperate bid to salvage her, Standing, Lively and the Sloan team allegedly conspired with consolidated defendants Ryan Reynolds and the New York Times to scapegoat the Wayfair parties for Lively's woes. Based on available information and belief, the Sloan team worked for months to drop subtle hints and breadcrumbs of sinister allegations to the public while covertly feeding defamatory falsehoods to any reporter willing to listen, including Megan Tway of the New York Times. As a direct consequence of the actions taken by the Sloan team and their co-conspirators, the Wayfair parties have suffered damage beyond measure. Their reputations are shattered, their businesses lie in tatters, and their own film was taken from them. These are the facts underpinning Wayfair's allegations against the Sloan team, and this is what the evidence will prove at trial. It is exceptionally hard to fully understand the situation for me and for many others. Many of you who commented on why they waited until December to release this note may recall that it had been months since the film premiered. Most criticism was subsiding, and theoretically, she could have rebounded and moved on. However, Ryan and Blake are particularly sensitive to criticism. They dislike it. Ryan has mentioned in interviews that even mild rejections are extremely challenging for him, as being told no feels like the end of the world. I consider authorship and the underlying dynamics of creative control, narrative influence, and public sentiment in full.
role, or however you want to frame it, as trust. Like, I had a point of view when I had no power, and I would be nervous, and I knew the stakes, but I had absolutely no input into
Yeah.
what happens. And when you have a point of view
Yeah.
and it can't be expressed, even though you try,
It's like something, a monkey rattling a cage.
yeah,
It's gonna like
know,
start
right?
chewing the
It's a
bars.
terrible
Yeah.
feeling. And people, when you do try to express the point of view and you're sort of placated or told, that we're not going to do that, or you say something that sort of feels reasonable, like, let's stop spending on spectacle and let's spend on character.
Yeah.
Or like, why are we putting all the money in special effects when we could just write,
Right.
and that's sort of dismissed. If that happens a couple of times, you sort of go, okay, but at the end of the day, they're not writing the story about how, Phyllis von Philistine movie bombs. They're saying they use the actor who's in it, right?
Right,
So
yes.
I own the bomb.
One clear observation is that much of what Blake said on the red carpet and in her interviews appears to consist of talking points and sound bites she has heard from her own husband. He often uses terms like authorship, yet he regards authorship as a form of control. He dislikes being dismissed, even when he offers a strong idea, because rejection makes him feel out of control. This need for control drives him. Ryan was dismissed by Justin early on when Justin did not appreciate the rooftop scene that Blake claimed she had written, though Ryan was the true author. Moreover, many of the issues between Blake and Justin have been fueled by her husband, Ryan, clearly showing that both Blake and Ryan are motivated by a desire for control. This exposes a deep struggle for dominance and conflict. However, it is that initial rejection, which I believe truly fuels a great deal of anger. They assume they know better. They believe they can improve the film, asserting that their perspective on the world is superior. Similarly, when dismissed in his own words, he becomes upset and craves control. He devotes his life to seeking validation and attention, living off the acclaim he receives from films, which acts like a drug. He openly admits to being a narcissist, stating that his entire existence revolves around the energy he derives from people admiring him and considering him a great person. Consequently, when he is not adored and perceived as outstanding, that is when he lashes out. These underlying dynamics shape personal emotions and sway public opinion. The relentless pursuit of control intensifies reactions, making each criticism feel like a personal attack and further escalating conflict. This explains why some of their actions appear so irrational to me. I find it incomprehensible. Furthermore, when you examine the dynamics of the PR world and observe how ruthlessly these companies compete, it becomes increasingly difficult to trust anything reported about any celebrity nowadays. Every time I encounter an article about a celebrity, I immediately wonder, what is the spin and what are they trying to achieve? Before addressing why they're doing this, nothing seems genuine from anyone anymore. If this case achieves anything for the broader public, it should reveal how manipulated we are as consumers by celebrities and their PR teams. Clearly, Ryan and his wife Blake have long employed strong PR teams, ensuring effective public relations on their behalf. The notion that they would resort to actions like these appears so abnormal that it has fostered a narrative wherein a group of individuals accepts every word they utter. Moreover, if you do not perceive events in the manner that Blake and Ryan present them, you are branded as an alt-right creator and labeled misogynistic, which is untrue. I wish to delve into another element of this story, as this response has provided many answers. The response to the motion to dismiss states that, on or about December the 31st, 2022, Blake Lively agreed to assume the lead role of Lily Bloom. She was granted an executive producer credit. However, Wayfair neither requested nor required her to contribute to the film in any capacity beyond serving as an actor and executive producer, a vanity credit with no direct responsibilities. It appeared this account clearly highlights the intricate balance between celebrity influence, public perception, and control, challenging our view of genuine media authenticity. Initially, expectations were that they would develop a productive working relationship early on. However, she soon began to overstep her contractual entitlements by intruding into the production process in ways beyond her agreed role. She took control of the wardrobe and caused the budget for her role to explode, insisting on assuming responsibility. For writing multiple key scenes for the film, she resorted to summoning her famous husband and a friend as reinforcements when her script rewrites were not received as enthusiastically as she had hoped. She altered the script daily. Both pre-production and the initial phase of filming became tenuous, with the Wayfair team tiptoeing around Lively to avoid inciting her and Reynolds' wrath, resulting in delays and financial losses in a scheduled production. At one point, she issued Boni an ultimatum. If he could not adapt to her work methods, she might have to recast her role. On set, she maintained a casual, frank manner by inviting Boni to join her in the trailer while expressing opinions and using terms such as sexy, which she later castigated others for employing during interviews. Confirming all he has stated, in that segment she declared that she enters films like a wrecking ball, or as if one were drinking directly from a fire hose, because she demands that everything be done her way. She insists on authorship, and every time the term authorship is mentioned, it simply signifies control, her code word for control. They describe how creative differences eventually disintegrate once filming resumes, after all matters have been arranged. Nothing occurs during the completion of the film's second half. However, it is noted that, gradually, Lively completely assumed control over the film's editing, ultimately coercing Sony and Wayfair into releasing her version despite its weak performance in audience tests. She also dictated the film's marketing, eliminating Boni from promotional content and spearheading the lighthearted Froy campaign for the film while promoting her own products, a decision that later proved disastrous for her. Subsequently, she persisted in demanding additional credit for the film, insisting that Wayfair endorse her request for the prestigious PGA mark despite the ongoing disputes and mounting evidence against her methods. This relentless pursuit of control has only further deepened industry controversies worldwide. Undoubtedly, not having earned that credit, which denotes a producer who performed the majority of the work in producing the film, as the film's premiere approached in the summer of 2024, she informed Sony that she and the remainder of the cast would not participate in any marketing or promotional activities for the film alongside Belden. This decision deliberately created a false impression that Boni had committed a serious offense. Furthermore, based on information and belief, Sloan was, throughout this period, actively engaged in disseminating false and defamatory allegations against the Wayfair parties to members of the press, both defaming them and serving as muscle. Behind Lively's coercive threats, this all began well before the backlash against Lively for her misguided marketing efforts for the film, not to mention the self-promotion of her alcohol and hair care brand. Interestingly, Blake has publicly stated that a subpoena was issued for the phone records of Melissa Nathan and Jen AEL, yet there is absolutely no way she could have obtained text message records. This, in essence, undermines her credibility. Unless, for instance, Stephanie Jones was responsible, note that text messages cannot be obtained through a subpoena. Companies only provide metadata indicating when messages were sent, not their actual content. They claim that as Wayfair and Boni distanced themselves from their increasingly erratic publicist, Jen Stephanie Jones, she reacted decisively. Upon examining the phone of the departing publicist Jen AEL, who served as JoanWorks' designated point of contact for the Wayfair account, she believed it contained damning information. Without delay, she immediately forwarded that information to the Sloan parties. On the very same day, Sloan called Melissa Nathan and informed her that he had seen Nathan's text to Abel and warned that she should expect to be sued. It is quite astonishing because they continually assert that they executed a subpoena to obtain these texts. However, how could they have acquired and reviewed the messages on the same day that Jen surrendered her phone? One must consider the typical duration required to secure a subpoena: months. Clearly, she is lying, and Blake is lying as well. At least, that is my opinion. Now, armed with AEL's private text messages and communications, the evidence speaks for itself, leaving no room for doubt or further dispute. Blake Lively and the Sloan parties collaborated closely with the New York Times to fabricate a narrative that would explain Lively's downfall by shifting blame onto the Wayfair parties. This occurred after the Wayfair parties finally stood up to Lively and Reynolds, refusing to comply with their final demand that the Wayfair parties issue a false and degrading statement admitting blame and wrongdoing. At that point, all pretense was discarded. The Wayfair parties alleged that the Sloan parties colluded with Lively, Reynolds, and the New York Times over several months to produce a false and defamatory news article and video in connection with Lively's baseless sham. Complaint filed with the California Civil Rights Department. Consequently, the Wayfair parties have suffered immeasurable harm. It is astonishing to think that someone would be so enraged by their reputation plummeting that in order to escape the PR crisis, they reversed the narrative and blamed the opposing party, who remained unscathed because during the press tour, Justin did not suffer negative press, largely due to Colleen Hoover's built-in audience, which adored him. This orchestrated campaign of misinformation not only ruined reputations, but manipulated public opinion in ways that are disturbing and unprecedented. Expressing appreciation for the manner in which he promoted the film and openly discussed its subject matter without hesitation, he also refrained from being critical or discourteous toward Lively, frequently commending her for the accomplishments achieved on this film. However, it was Lively who persistently engaged in self-promotion, advertising her hair care line and alcohol brand. Furthermore, during interviews for It Ends With Us, she habitually interrupted to endorse Deadpool and Wolverine, which are competing films from rival studios released concurrently with her own project. Imagine attending a Coca-Cola event, being interviewed, and then suddenly being urged to try Pepsi. That is essentially what she was doing. Alternatively, it is comparable to being at a Microsoft event and proclaiming, "I love my Mac Apple. My iMac is exceptional." These were her deliberate choices, as she exploited the marketing for It Ends With Us to elevate her husband's profile and her own, rather than focusing on the story. Additionally, she neglected to address inquiries regarding abuse or domestic violence, consistently striving to frame the narrative in her favor. Her deliberate strategy diverted focus from the film's message and emphasized her personal branding, overshadowing the important topics of abuse and domestic violence, which she consistently avoided addressing in interviews without exception. This is presented as a story of hope, and the notion that women are multitudes is a phrase I detest. If I ever hear that again, I insist they adopt a new thesaurus. Later, in the response to the motion to dismiss, they outline what they allege Leslie Sloan did, or what they believe she did, by engaging with various media outlets with which she maintained relationships. They claim she propagated a narrative that Justin Baldoni was a sexual predator, that he had sexually assaulted Blake Lively, and that he orchestrated a smear campaign against her. This, they argue, is the reason she received so much backlash. It had nothing whatsoever to do with Blake. It was not because Blake was self-promoting, dismissive, or rude in videos towards interviewers, or by interrupting, nor by genuinely acting foolishly on the press tour. It was because Justin was accused of being a sexual predator, and that is their allegation. They will have to prove in court that Leslie did this. The crux of the matter is that they assert the Sloan parties provided the New York Times with text messages, which they refer to as Mrs. Mays. Regarding the alleged claims of sexual misconduct, she and her co-conspirators reportedly omitted subsequent messages indicating that the allegations were false. Concerning the so-called untraceable smear campaign, it should have been evident to the Sloan Party's public relations professionals that the root cause of Liv's poor press was her decision to hawk liquor and hair care products while promoting a film about domestic violence. The notion that the backlash resulted from an untraceable smear campaign is inherently improbable. Only a reckless individual would propagate such a claim. There were obvious reasons to doubt the accuracy of these statements, which the Sloan parties chose to disregard. Taken as a whole, the first amended complaint alleges sufficient facts to infer actual malice on the part of the Sloan parties and other defendants. By circulating this claim and attributing the negative narrative to an untraceable smear campaign, they are able to advance their own version of events. I have questions about why this approach was taken, and it appears that this strategy was employed primarily because Blake's reputation was at stake. This manipulation of information undermines genuine discourse and further endangers public trust undeniably. Her reputation was so severely damaged that she believed the only method to restore her status was to approach one of the nation's largest newspapers and have them report on the civil rights complaint she had filed in California while also supplying selected text messages. It is difficult to fathom that Leslie Sloan, the publicist who has also represented Harvey Weinstein and other individuals implicated in serious misconduct and subsequent cover-ups with the press, would be unaware of these developments. The fundamental purpose of public relations is to shield their clients at all costs, and PR firms will employ extreme measures to safeguard their interests. She owes her loyalty solely to Blake, as Blake is the one funding her expenses, her motivation, stems from the fact that if Blake's reputation declines and she loses lucrative brand deals, Sloane's income suffers too due to the loss of a profitable client. Consequently, the publicist is incentivized to promote a narrative that they believe will extricate her client from crisis, even if that narrative is untrue and known to be false. Additionally, Boney and Wayfair's attorneys claim there are two specific factors involved. This manipulation, designed to divert scrutiny and preserve a tarnished image, highlights the ruthless nature of modern public relations, where reputation and profit are inextricably linked. Leslie Sloane in conspiracy and collaboration with Ryan. Reynolds, Blake Lively, and the New York Times allege that certain Wayfair parties, specifically Justin Baldoni and Jamie Heath, engaged in sexual misconduct against Blake Lively. She further claimed that the Wayfair team orchestrated a retaliatory smear campaign to tarnish Lively's image and reputation after she reported her alleged misconduct. Here is what bothers me about Blake. I worked in professional corporate America for 17 years, where I encountered sexual harassment and witnessed coworkers viewing pornography during work hours. I reported these incidents to HR and subsequently refused to associate with those individuals, resulting in their relocation and, ultimately, the dismissal of one. If you are concerned about workplace sexual harassment, especially when it involves your superior, why would you remain on a film that is, to quote, low budget beneath you and insignificant in the broader context? You do not need the money, since your husband can provide for you. So, why stay if these people are so deplorable? Frankly, such behavior not only undermines personal integrity, but also damages the entire professional environment, making it intolerable and unsustainable. Indeed, they claim to have done exactly what she alleges. Yet why would she remain on set if that were the case? If it were me, I wouldn't have stayed. What she alleges simply doesn't make sense to me. There she is, discreetly sucking on her bottom lip and using the word sexy in a film that already contains explicit sex scenes. I can't understand how she can take a photo or even a still frame from a video of a birth and equate that to pornography. These are not genuine issues or valid claims. If they were serious allegations, she should have pursued the proper channels. That is why I don't believe her. When one experiences sexual harassment in the workplace, the appropriate course is to file a complaint with HR, or, if you belong to a union, to approach the union. However, Blake couldn't turn to her union to file a complaint because she was already violating the union's contracts and bylaws by working on a film without a signed contract. Likewise, she couldn't involve SAG because she was breaching SAG's rules. If she hadn't signed the contract yet and is using that unsigned contract as leverage, it simply doesn't hold up. Based on what she claims, they did what she alleges. Why would she remain on set if that were true? If I were in her place, I would not have stayed. Moreover, what she alleges does not make sense to me. There she is, discreetly sucking on her bottom lip while saying sexy in a film already, full of explicit sex scenes. I cannot understand how a still frame from a birth, shown in a photo, can be equated to pornography. These are not legitimate issues nor credible claims. If they were genuine, she should have used proper channels. When one faces sexual harassment in the workplace, the proper response is to file a complaint with Human Resources, or, if part of a union, to report it to a union representative. However, Blake could not seek union help because she was violating union contracts by working on the film without a signed agreement. She also could not involve SAG, since that would breach its rules. Using an unsigned contract as leverage is untenable. In summary, her actions and claims lack substantiation, and proper procedures were not followed. This situation leaves me skeptical of her credibility, and it undermines the experiences of those who have faced harassment and followed proper protocols. I believe that if true misconduct had occurred, she would have taken the appropriate steps rather than resorting to unverified allegations. This account clearly fails to meet rigorous standards. She repeatedly breached the contract, violating its terms over and over again. Then, she weaponized the contract, and that is the aspect that truly bothers me about these outlets. They refuse to consider Bond's side. Instead, they insist that because she claimed it happened, it must be true. We already know that Mr. Reynolds will lie about anything, as she has admitted. They are willing to lie about everything. All they care about is the adoration they receive, and they never seem to get enough. Their reputation is the only thing that matters to them. When you hear Ryan say he cannot obtain enough external validation, that is all you need to understand. What infuriates me is that they brought this issue to the public when it was unnecessary. They could have filed the matter with California without involving the press. They did not have to escalate it. They did so deliberately because they desired the public relations boost that the story would provide them. She is utterly obsessed with her reputation. A normal person would never behave that way. A reasonable person would not run to the press with claims like, "Here is proof, and this is why." Their actions reveal an undeniable hypocrisy. Nobody should despise me. Only those who care excessively about their reputations do that. I am merely a minor content creator, a so-called low-influence public figure, and people criticize me daily. There are entire channels dedicated to discussing and creating videos about me, but I remain indifferent because if you know the criticisms are unfounded, then who cares about what others say? I believe they spread these claims because they know there is some truth and they desperately need an escape route. That is why she is now employing a CIA operative for her crisis PR. This is what I gathered today. All of this is nothing more than a PR game. Judge Lewis Lyman even described it as a feud between PR companies and agencies, a battle solely for reputation. Meanwhile, poor Justin was utterly demolished in the process, and he is far from perfect. Frankly, I would have fired her immediately if I were in charge, and she acted in such a manner. But as the saying goes, hindsight is 20/20. So, what are your thoughts on this narrative? Are you surprised? Please share your opinions in the comments below. Also, do give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and click the bell so you never miss another video. Your honest feedback truly matters, so please leave detailed comments and share this important discussion widely. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, guys.